What if the worst customer you ever served was also the key to unlocking your wildest dreams? For one waitress, a single sentence spoken in a language she wasn't supposed to know changed everything. This isn't a fairy tale. This is a story about how a moment of kindness in a noisy New York diner caught the attention of a man who didn't just see a waitress. He saw a wasted masterpiece. It's a story of a cryptic note, a private jet ticket, and a test so demanding it could shatter her or turn her into the person she was always meant to be. The smell of stale coffee and burnt bacon grease was the perfume of Esther Beaumont's life. It clung to her hair, her cheap polyester uniform, and the weary lines around her 26-year-old eyes. She worked at the Astor Diner in Manhattan's Upper East Side, a place that, like its name, pretended to be something grander than it was. It had polished brass railings that were always smudged with fingerprints and red vinyl booths that were cracked like old leather. It was a purgatory for the city's aspiring artists, actors, and in Esther's case, forgotten scholars. Each morning she would tie her apron, the strings frayed from 1,000 shifts, and paste on a smile that rarely reached her eyes. She was good at her job, efficient, polite, and almost invisible, the perfect waitress. No one poring over their Wall Street Journal or complaining about the temperature of their soup would ever guess that Esther could dissect the semiotics of Renaissance art or debate French existentialist philosophy. No one knew that 4 years ago she had been a top student at the Sorbonne in Paris, living a life painted in the vibrant colors of her dreams. Then came the phone call, her father's heart attack, the collapse of his small construction business, the mountain of unforeseen debt. Her dream dissolved overnight. She flew home, leaving behind the cobblestone streets of the Latin Quarter for the cracked pavement of a tiny Queens apartment she now shared with her friend Maya. Paris became a ghost, a painful whisper of a life that belonged to someone else. Esther grabbed the heavy plates, the heat warming her forearms. "Thanks, S," Saul the cook barked from behind the griddle. She moved through the cramped diner with a practiced grace, weaving between tables and busboys. Table 7 was her nemesis today, a man in a pinstripe suit, probably in his late 40s, who had already sent back his orange juice because it had too much pulp. His name was Mr. Henderson, and he was trying desperately to impress his much younger date. "And make sure the steak is medium rare," he had snapped earlier. "Not medium, not rare. If it bleeds, I'm sending it back. If it's gray, I'm sending it back. Got it, sweetheart?" Esther had smiled. "Perfectly clear, sir." As she navigated the lunchtime rush, her eyes scanned the room. In the far corner booth, a man sat alone. He was different from the usual diner crowd. He wasn't on his phone or trying to be seen. He was just watching. Dressed in a dark gray cashmere sweater and charcoal trousers, he carried no flashy watch, no ostentatious display of wealth, but the cut of his clothes and the quiet intensity in his gaze spoke of a different world. He nursed a single black coffee. Every time she passed, she felt his eyes on her, not in a predatory way, but analytical. She pegged him as a writer or perhaps a professor. "2 more coffees for table 9, Maya whispered as they crossed paths near the kitchen. "And Henderson is asking for you again, says his water tastes too municipal." Esther sighed. "Of course he does. I'll get the bottled water." It was just another Tuesday, a relentless cycle of pouring coffee, taking orders, and absorbing the casual condescension of people who had never known what it felt like to choose between paying the electricity bill and buying groceries. She moved toward Henderson's table, tray of water bottles balanced perfectly, unaware that this mundane, soul-crushing Tuesday was about to split her life in two. The man in the corner took a slow sip of his coffee, his gaze following her. There was a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes. He wasn't just watching a waitress, he was waiting. The bell above the diner door chimed. An elderly woman stepped inside, looking flustered and out of place. She clutched a large handbag, her eyes wide, scanning the chaotic room as if she had walked into a foreign jungle. Her clothes were elegant but simple. A classic trench coat, a silk scarf. She looked like a tourist who had taken a wrong turn off Madison Avenue. She approached the host stand where Kevin, the teenage new hire, was fumbling with the seating chart. A table, s'il vous plaît? She asked, her English heavily accented. Kevin stared blankly. A what? For one, s'il vous plaît? She repeated, her voice trembling. Yeah, hold on, Kevin mumbled, not looking up. The woman waited, looking more distressed. She tried again, this time in rapid-fire French, explaining that she was lost. Her phone battery was dead. She was supposed to meet her tour group at the Met, but she thought it was the Guggenheim. Kevin just shook his head. Sorry, lady, I don't speak whatever that is. Spanish? From his table, Henderson let out a loud sigh. Oh, for heaven's sake, let a man of culture handle this. He pushed back his chair, puffed out his chest, and approached the woman. Bonjour, madame, he said, his accent a grotesque caricature. I can help you. You want a table? The French woman looked even more confused. Esther, delivering a breadbasket nearby, felt her face flush with second-hand embarrassment. Henderson was butchering the language, turning its lyricism into a clumsy assault. It wasn't just his terrible French, it was his arrogance, his smugness. Something inside her snapped. She set the bread down, wiped her hands on her apron, and stepped toward the woman. Alexander Sterling in the corner booth leaned forward ever so slightly, coffee cup paused halfway to his lips. Esther smiled at the woman, and when she spoke, it wasn't the weary voice of a waitress. It was a voice from another life, smooth, clear, Parisian. Madame, pardonnez-moi. This man doesn't understand you. May I help? You seem lost. The diner fell silent. Henderson's jaw dropped. His date stared. Even Saul peeked out from the kitchen. The French woman's face lit up with relief. Oh, mon Dieu, oui! She launched into her story again, but this time her words found safe harbor. Esther listened patiently. She calmed her, called her tour company, wrote down clear directions on a napkin. The woman pressed a $20 bill into Esther's hand. Esther gently refused. C'est le voyage. My pleasure. Safe trip. As Madame Dubois left, Henderson sulked. He had left a single dollar tip on a $100 bill. Typical. But the man in the corner, he also rose to leave. Sliding on a navy coat, he caught Esther's eye. His look was sharp, appraising. He left a crisp $100 bill on the table for a $3 coffee and walked out without a word. Esther pocketed it, a thrill of victory in her chest. She thought that was the end of it, a fleeting moment of rebellion in her gray life. She had no idea. It was only the beginning. The deal was done. Maison Lefebvre was no longer just a family brand. It was reborn, protected, and ready to step into the future. Esther had stood in rooms she never imagined, spoken words that carried more weight than any degree, and earned respect from people who once dismissed her as invisible. On her last night in Paris, she stood on the balcony of Sterling's mansion, the city glowing beneath her. The Eiffel Tower shimmered like a heartbeat against the sky. Just a week ago, she had been wiping grease from cracked menus and serving men like Henderson. Now she had carved her name into a world that had once seemed locked away from her. Alexander joined her on the balcony. For a long moment, neither spoke. Finally, he broke the silence. You changed everything, Esther. She turned to him, her voice steady. Number I just remembered who I was. The truth was simple. Her story hadn't been about a billionaire's rescue or a lucky twist of fate. It was about the courage to answer when opportunity knocked, even when it came in the form of a mysterious black envelope. Esther had arrived in Paris as a waitress with nothing but doubt. She would remain as a woman with vision, purpose, and a seat at the table. The soul she thought she'd lost had only been waiting. The city stretched before her, endless and alive. She smiled, knowing this wasn't the end. It was only the first chapter of the life she was always meant to live. Because sometimes the smallest act of kindness doesn't just change someone else's life,